Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another video and the first Premier League review video. What I thought we would do, as we're about halfway through the season, is do a mid-season review, logically, and start from there. I was then thinking of making this maybe like a either fortnightly or monthly sort of update series where I just share my thoughts on the general Premier League table, because obviously really interested in that, and I've got some I think at least interesting opinions, considering everyone's trying to throw the season under the bus due to COVID. But yeah, so the format will basically be I'll just go through the Premier League table, this one being a chunky video, then the other one's probably being a smaller video. Just general thoughts on league position and what's not. So we'll jump right into it and start top of the table, Manchester United. I think this is a false position, really, considering 19 games in 14 points. That's like 2 points a game, which is really low. I mean, we haven't seen a season like this probably since 2016, really. Since at least the Liverpool Manchester United have been going at it and getting 90 odd points, which sort of spoilt us. And obviously Manchester City getting the 100 season before, I think. But yeah, Manchester United being top of the league. Any other season this would be good top four form, probably third place, second place, but just because of the inconsistencies this season, they found themselves top of the table. As you can see, Manchester United have got a game in hand here in second place, which I do think they'll win that, and I do think Manchester City will go top of the league. Following that as well, I do think Manchester City will win the league. Basically because they've been there, done it before. They've got the experienced squad, and I just think they're better placed than Manchester United. Manchester United still might go in I say bad run of form, but a bad run of form for Manchester City is like 2 draws in 5 games. So even if they do that, come against tricky opposition, this draw counter goes up more. Then yeah, I think that would just open the door for Manchester City, who are in second place. So again, like I say, I think these will eventually win the league. Game in hand, they'll probably play that, go over to Manchester United and never look back. They had a rocky start to the season, obviously 5 draws, 2 losses, and had a really weird league position for ages with like 8th and 9th, but I think that was just because they were 3 games behind everyone, 2 or 3 games, and now they're catching up. They're obviously catching up on the league. So yeah, we'll go down to third place, Leicester. I think they've done really well this season, considering just not managed to draw any games, managed to win rather than draw. Really good. They've got a really good, exciting squad. I love their squad. I think they're amazing youngsters. Obviously James Maddison at the heart of that, who's one of my favourite players. Yeah, I think these will probably settle between 4th and 5th, just because they had this sort of run last year, and I think they're really good last year, but they just dropped off because basically Leicester have this problem where they have to play the same 11 players week in, week out, which is fine, but in the Premier League you get to like 25 games and I think they just drop off, and you're already seeing that sort of like 2 draws there drop off, and yeah, I just think they'll settle maybe 4th if they'll keep more consistent than last season, but ultimately I think 5th will probably be a right place for them. And we move to Liverpool, who obviously lost, as I'm recording this, yesterday to Burnley, ending the 69 glorious games at Anfield undefeated. Funnily enough, I actually was at the game when they lost to Crystal Palace in 2017, and I promised myself I'd never go see another Liverpool game for as long as that streak existed, so I guess I can go back to Anfield now if I can get the ticket, which is good. But yeah, I think with that, their title race is over. Gone. I don't think they'll get title. I think they'll probably now keep top 4, maybe try to keep at arm's length with the top 2. Yeah, that's about gone. They're now potentially 7 points off, and I can't, unless Liverpool win all their remaining games, which I can't see happening. Maybe they'll catch up, but yeah, no, I think that's gone, which is a shame, really. But as I'm a Liverpool fan, but hey ho, you see that win to draw ratio just being not good enough at all. It was very much like in 2008, I remember, when Liverpool battling Manchester United, just too many draws, lost the title, and yeah, it was the same again, really. So we'll move on to Tottenham, who it looked like a game in hand over Liverpool, win that or a draw, they go 4th. I think these will battle with Leicester for 4th spot, personally. I think they've done really well so far under Mourinho, managing to get the most out of Harry Kane and Heung-min Son, which is really good, while also being quite defensively solid. You know, you saw that game against Liverpool, the typical Mourinho game that he rightly said they could have won, and they really could have if they took their chances. I think Bergwijn hit the post, and I think there was a Harry Kane miss as well, which obviously if those two go in, it's 3-2. Jose Mourinho looks like a tactical genius again. But yeah, he's done really well with that squad. Surprisingly not spent a lot of money for Mourinho. I mean, they've probably spent quite a bit in terms of Tottenham standard, but not for Mourinho standard. And it looked like he's settling in the Welsh centre-half as well. I've seen he's playing more games now, which was really good. That's sort of like your successor to Toby Alderweireld, I guess, or your replacement for Eric Dyer. Depends how long Alderweireld stays at the club. But yeah, Tottenham, 4th or 5th. Really good start of the season. They'll probably continue that on. Everton, as we move down into more Europa League places, have had a mixed batch. Obviously, two games behind and 17 games played. I guess if they win those 2 games, they go into 4th, and all of a sudden their season looks amazing. And I think this is the sort of season Everton have had. They've had, like, in one moment they've got an amazing squad and an amazing season, and the next moment, it's back to top 8. It's really weird for them. But I think it's just the case of, although Ancelotti's been there now for 18 months, 2 years, I still feel like his methodology is still settling in. I think he's still trying to get the players he wants to play in the style he wants to play. They had an amazing transfer window, as you know. They signed James Rodriguez, Allen, really, really solid players, and they've been playing really well. I think James has been more inconsistent than he'd like, but I guess that's just adjusting to the Premier League. So next season he'll probably be better. And even next season, if they recruit good again, they could even make a more of a solid run for top 4. Saying that, like I say, win the next 2 games and they're in top 4, so what do I know? Moving on to West Ham, 19 games played. Having a really good season under David Moyes, probably outperformed. I think everyone expected these to be more like 10th and 11th, but doing really well. He's clearly got a formula which he's replicating when he was at Everton, where it was sort of just a 4-4-2 in defence and a 4-2-3-1 when going forward, with Souček moving from an attacking midfielder to a defensive midfielder, like quite box to box. He had Fellaini obviously and Everton, and that's the big comparison everyone makes obviously. But he's got some really good players. He's got. I'd argue that West Ham team's got more technical players and more naturally gifted players than that Everton squad had. Like, for example, instead of Stephen Pienaar, he's got Jarrod Bowen, who in my opinion is a better player. Has really impressed me actually. I didn't think he was that good coming from the Championship. Had a lot to prove, but he's done a good job considering he's been there just a year. So yeah, he's also, they've got a decent centre. I say decent defence and centre half pairing, but I think you could improve Ogbonna. But at the same time, he seems to be getting better now. The team is settled, and of course Declan Rice has just grown and grown and grown and grown in that team. And I think he will get a big top 6 move. He will go in the next 2 years. I don't think he'll go in the summer. I think West Ham will fight to push to go Europe next year, or even this year to be fair. Then, if they don't, he'll go this year, next year, sorry. But if not, I think he might stay for a couple of more years, just because, you know, he'd be 22, 23 playing in Europa League. He's sort of the career path that you want. Yeah, okay, you could go to Chelsea, you could go to Leicester, you could go to Man City or Man U, but you wouldn't be guaranteed the first 11. Like, you see Manchester United, Donny van der Beek can't even get in the team, so what chance has Declan Rice got? And same with Man City, you'd be competing with Rodri, big competition. So I think he'll stay put for a couple of years, and then he'll get his 60-80 million pound move when he's 23, 24. Then we move on to Chelsea in 8th place, who they've sort of had a weird season. They had a really rough start. Then everyone's like, oh, it's okay, it's because he's got a bunch of new players, he's settling in. Then he also had this hot streak and managed to get to top 4. Now that's sort of faded and gone back to 8th. But I've watched their last 3 games, and this is just because they've brought too many players. That's just simple as. They've brought 2 players too many, or they haven't moved on enough players. Like, for example, Kai Havertz, biggest waste of money I think I've known in football for a long time. Absolutely did not need him. I think if you wanted to buy Kai Havertz, you had to move Kovacic, or you had to move Jorginho. If you've got, Kante, Kovacic, Jorginho, Mount, and yeah, just to shove Kai Havertz in there as well, I just think impossible job. And even as an attacking player or a false 9, you've then got Tammy Abraham, Giroud, Werner, Ziyech. It's just... And even Hudson-Odoi is trying to break through, and it's just case of too many players. I think they should have sold or not signed maybe 1 or 2 players, or sold 1 or 2 players. Giroud shouldn't be at the club, absolutely. I understand why Lampard wants him, but to me, you either keep Giroud, loan out Tammy Abraham, or keep Giroud, not sign Werner, not sign or loaned out Pulisic. You got Pulisic as well. It's like, God, you got 6 players, and it's just a case of you rotate. He hasn't got a team that was playing week in and week out together, and that's why we were so good last year, because they just had, like I said, the 11, 18 players playing week in, week out. There's a couple of tweaks now and again depending on position, and it worked. Okay, he was relying on youth, but youth got him to Europe and got him to the Champions League. It's just a bit silly, I think, spending all that money. And yeah, I think if he can't get top 4, he'll lose his job, basically. Because club legend or not, he's had 250 mil. Any other Abramovich, manager with 250 mil should be winning the league in Abramovich's eyes. It's just simple as that. And to be in 8th at this stage, yeah, I think he'll last to the end of the season, but no, I can't see him being there next year. Moving on to Southampton, who have a chance to win their game in hand over Chelsea to go into an 8th position. Again, Hassan Hoot was doing a very, very, very good job. Cannot be credited enough for what he's done for that club, considering he's been working on shoestring budget and basically youth players. Yeah, it's just been amazing for the club. I think they're about where they should be, 9th, maybe 8th. Don't think they've quite got the squad yet for Europa League, and I think they're relying too much on Danny Ings. I think what should happen with Hassan Hootel is he should show, look, this is what I can do with shoestring budget. Give me 50 mil and I'll show you how to get into Europe, or 100 mil, I guess. But I don't think the club will. I think the club are very happy just being mid-table and just getting that Premier League TV earnings year in, year out, which is fine. But basically, I don't see Hassan Hill being there for the long term. I think in a couple of years, if there's a position of the top 6, top 7, he'll go. Like Chelsea, for example, maybe not actually. Chelsea probably maybe go for an Allegri as opposed to a Hassan Hootel, but yeah, I don't see Hassan Hoot staying at Southampton long if he gets no money. But yeah, really good job so far. It caused controversy, for crying after winning against Liverpool. Don't blame him at all. He's had a really hard life recently, in terms of personally, and he's been working his ass off to get his Southampton team back from that. What was it, like 9-0 defeat? So completely justified to get it. He hasn't beaten Klopp in his career yet, and bearing in mind he's been at Leipzig as well. He's doing that. I think it was just a floodgate. I think that would have happened if he beat Man City. I think it would have happened if he managed to do something quite amazing, and it just happened to be Liverpool, and he, completely get 100% deserved. Should not be criticised for showing emotions as a bloke. 100%. Move on to 10th, Arsenal. Interesting team. They're very mid. You look at the wins to losses, very mid-table. If you get as many losses as you wins, you're set in 10th, aren't you? But good form of late. Probably will build on that. Do I see him making that impact much on the top table? Probably not. I in some ways I hope Arsenal don't qualify for Europe, just to give Arteta a good chance to develop the team further for next year, because I think at the moment the problem he's got is the case of a lot of competition's got along, a lot of expectations, but if he doesn't make Europe, he might be able to just focus all his efforts into the Premier League, and with that, he might actually be able to get higher up in the league. If they make a couple of good signings as well. Ozil obviously going to leave. That's going to be a lot on the wage bill. I think Willian as well. He'll be on another year. But if he leaves, he leaves. Then hopefully they've got some money then to spend on some good players, because they still need another centre mid, I think, because even Partey, he looks good and he will be the holding mid that they need in that 4. But I just think with creative midfielders, Shaq and Ceballos are just not good enough. I think Ceballos should go back to Real Madrid, or if they can buy him, maybe buy him, because he's a good squad player. But as a just out and out creative mid, not good enough at all. It'd be interesting if they could make a move for Eriksen, because I think Eriksen would be a good fit for Arsenal in the way they play. I think that could be very interesting, especially with the Tottenham to Arsenal switch. But yeah, I don't expect Arsenal to move much. I think if they continue on this form, they'll probably push 8th, maybe. But I don't expect them to be in the top 7. West Ham, Chelsea, they've already got, and Everton, to be fair, they've already got a better foundation if they have this half of the season. So even if they have a really good second half. I do think these three teams will continue on their form. So, yeah, probably 8th or 9th. And move on to Aston Villa. Again, 3 games in hand. If they win all their games, it puts them 35 points, and that puts them 4th. So go from 11th to 4th in 3 games. But being a game, when you'll see this is probably the Monday when I'm recording this, it is the 22nd. So they are to play Newcastle, which I fully expect them to win. So probably when you see this video, they've probably moved to more 10th, 9th. So yeah, I think they've got a really good opportunity. They've got a really good start to the season. But again, like Leicester, they're playing week in, week out with basically the same team. So I think this will have sort of ramifications at the back end of the season, and I think they will drop off. I expect, again, probably settle for like top half, 9th maybe. It'd be really difficult to give an actual where everyone will finish prediction of this table, because I think the top 6 are dead set. Maybe top 5 maybe. And yeah, 6th to 12th is like anyone. 6th to 11th, I'll say. Those 5 places just chop and change week in, week out. It's going to be really interesting to see how it settles. Leeds United, 12th, really good start. First years back in, 16, 17 years in the Premier League. 12th is probably where I expect them to settle, because they're so up and down. They're 1 week amazing, 1 week average. And that's just because of how Bielsa plays football, I think, and the demands of the Premier League. They need 3 players in summer. I've been really impressed with, I think, not Rodrigo, the other one. Someone from the French league, can't remember his name, but the Brazilian, really good player. Really like him, really impressed. I think he'll just get better and better. But they do need 3 players just to rotate. Probably that core, just rotate that core. Get another centre half in, that knows. Another probably midfielder. Then maybe another flexible attacking option that can play maybe on the striker and on the wing, like Rodrigo, another one of them. And I think they can just build and build and build as the years go on. And I wouldn't be surprised if in 3 years they do become a top 8 team and go back in Europa League. But then they eventually will hit a period where Bielsa will just leave for whatever reason. And to replace Bielsa is going to be impossible. So it'll be interesting what Leeds United do in the next sort of like 10 years. But then move on to Crystal Palace, 13th, and they will remain 13th, dead set. Yeah, absolutely. They probably might even drop down to 14th, but yeah. Roy Hodgson be doing Roy Hodgson bits. 7-0 to Liverpool, but then we'll win against Fulham, West Brom, Sheffield. So doing what you do in Crystal Palace, love. The only thing to really report is Eze looks a great buy, and he, like Declan Rice, will probably stay there for a couple of years, then move on to a higher brand of football. Wilfried Zaha, I think that he might just sit at Crystal Palace until his contract runs out, to be honest, because I think he had his opportunity at Manchester United, didn't take it, and now he is doomed to Crystal Palace for the rest of his career. He probably will go to Arsenal when his contract runs out in like 4 years, 2025, when he's like 32 or something. So they might even not even do that. Don't know. Zaha, you've wasted your career, mate. Moving on to Wolves, really shocking league position for them. Basically, they've played the league like you would in career mode in FIFA. They've gone, we're going to cash in, we're going to buy a bunch of teenagers in the Championship, we're going to develop them for a year, we're going to win promotion back on raw talent, we're then going to use that experience to then climb up the league, to these players get to 23, we're then going to cash in big time on them and buy a bunch of 19-year-olds. Problem with that is you're selling experience for inexperience, and that's where you'll find yourself in the league. So in FIFA it works. You sell yourself a 85 Jota you brought for 5 million for 40 million to buy a 19-year-old, or is he 17? I can't remember his name, from Portugal, 17-year-old striker, and he might get 10, 15 goals a season in FIFA, but in reality, not ever going to happen. But I do think they've got a better set of youngsters than they did have in the Championship, so I do expect Wolves to do really well in the next 5 years, and maybe even push top 4. But again, they're a selling club at heart, so I think Nuno will eventually leave and get sick and tired of that. I do think all their great players that you're seeing coming in at teenagers will just leave when they hit like 22, 23. Jota is the prime example of that. Just sort of, just the sort of the consequences of their own business decisions is that elite position. Newcastle next in 15th. Shocking form, really bad form. Everyone was talking up Steve Bruce to be a masterclass, great British manager 10 games ago, but No, this is exactly what I expected Newcastle to be honest, under Steve Bruce, because he does not know how to keep a team up to the Premier League for more than 2 seconds, really. He knows how to get teams to the Premier League, for sure, but you can't keep them up there. He's an abysmal manager in the bottom league. I don't care. Don't care what anyone thinks. He's had money chucked at him, and, he's still in the same place that Rafa Benitez was, even with that money. I mean, how the hell you've got Callum Wilson in your attack and you're not able to score goals? I don't know. I really don't know. If Callum Wilson went to Tottenham instead of Newcastle, he would be up there, just on substitute appearances with goals. He would have suited Mourinho so well, but decided to go to Newcastle for more game time, I guess, and it's backfired. And you compare the squads from Rafa Benitez leaving to now 2021 Steve Bruce's team, it's just so much better. And to be in 15th, yeah, it's what you expect from Steve Bruce. I think Mike Ashley wants a sell as well. The sooner that's sorted, the better for Newcastle, because they're suffering from it. What they need is basically, probably 3 players, 40, 50 mil each, and all of a sudden they're a top tier club again. Maybe not top tier, but top half club, definitely. But they get rid of Steve Bruce, 100%. Burnley just beat Liverpool in 16th. I can see them just slowly march their way out of this. They'll probably end up 15th, and Newcastle drop to 16th. To be honest, I think Newcastle with Steve Bruce will enter a relegation battle sooner rather than later. You've got to be honest. Whereas Burnley will just go above. They may even get as far as maybe 14th, 13th. But yeah, it's just the consequence of this league position is basically of lack of investing. If they actually spent money at Burnley and pumped money into the club, they would be a lot higher, because the first 10 games they were in the relegation zone because they had to basically put... I remember at one game they had to put, I think, 2 goalkeepers in the bench because they couldn't put enough actual players out. It was ridiculous. And yeah, it's just injuries bogged them down, and now they've got their players back. They're just getting better and better and back to where you expect them, which is, their best. They qualify for Europe, don't forget, and they're worse with loads of injuries. They're 16th, but I think they'll probably slowly go up to 15th, 14th at the end of the season. Moving to Brighton. Brighton and Newcastle are the 2 teams I would be worried about if I supported that club entering a relegation battle, because they're only 5 points ahead, and if Fulham get a rogue victory there, then all of a sudden they're 2 points. Graham Potter, I do think, is a really good manager, but I don't think, again, they've spent well, to be honest. They've got Connolly and Mopay up front, and they're playing Ben White in midfield, and yeah, he's a great manager, and I think he will eventually get a bigger job in the future, because I do think he has proven himself outside this country, and he's done well, to be fair, with the money he's got. It's like Chris Hughton. Chris Hughton's a great manager and did well at Brighton, but again, he was relying on Glenn Murray, which, if you rely on Glenn Murray for anything, you're in trouble. But yeah, I think these Brighton and Newcastle are the ones that could potentially swap with the bottom 3. And I'll quickly go for the bottom 3. Fulham look the best out of the 3. I think these would be the ones to stay up. If any of this bottom 3 was to be interchanged, it would be Fulham at my head. Sheffield, surprisingly, might still stay up, and I'll explain myself later. And West Brom, I think, are gone. But yeah, Fulham really good. Really like Scott Parker as a manager. Really like the style of player he is. I think the reason why they're here and 5 points off is because at the start of the season, he basically went 6 games in trying with the faithful that got him promoted, i.e. the Tom Kearneys, and they're just not Premier League standard. So he's dropped them for the last 12 games, and they've been plucking away. 3 draws in 5 games, it's not the worst, but chuck a win in there, all of a sudden you're 2 points away from safety. So I think they're keeping themselves in there. Goal difference, again, is the result of the first 6 games, I think, that. And that will slowly improve, which will improve their league position. But I do think Fulham have a good chance of staying up. West Brom, I think, are gone. I think Sam Allardyce bit off more than he can chew. I think it was a really interesting appointment from West Brom. I did think if Slaven Bilic was to go, then it would be a Sam Allardyce special. And the problem with Sam Allardyce is I think he's just been away from the Premier League too long. I think that when he left, I think it was West Ham was his last job. When he left West Ham to now come back West Brom, the Premier League has scaled so much in that time. It has got so much better. So what a good team looked when he was at West Brom you know, a bad team looked when he was at West Ham is a super bad team now. So he's probably looked at West Brom, probably seen, you know, like compared it against the Sunderland team, like, okay, this is actually a good team I can stay up compared to that Sunderland team. And the reality of the situation is, yeah, although it is a better team and is other teams it's took on, it's just shocking in compared to where the Premier League is now. The one good player in Pereira, the West, and maybe Ajayi, to be fair. Ajayi's looked really good. But Sam Johnston, again, probably could come into the Premier League. So those three players aside, it's a championship team. They have not invested. Slaven Bilic got absolutely screwed over hard. And the fact they sacked him was brutal, I thought. Shocking decision. Because at the end of the day, even West Brom are a yo-yo club. So even if they stick with Slaven Bilic for the whole year, get relegated, he's the best chance to get you back up there again. Like Norwich have done with Fark. You know, bottom of the league, did really poorly, but it's a young team, got relegated, and they look like they're going to bounce back up. So, yeah, Slaven Bilic got screwed. He'll probably come back to football, maybe abroad, maybe in the Championship again, but I really rate him. And yeah, I think Sam Allardyce has just really misjudged this West Brom team. So yeah. Then we move on to Sheffield, who, like I said before, they could bounce back. They really could, but it all depends. You know, got their one. It's the end of only 12 points ahead, behind. Sorry, that is catchable. You know, especially again if Brighton and Newcastle continue on that trajectory of form. Yeah, you know, Newcastle, Brighton go down, Sheffield go above West Brom. All of a sudden, you're only like, you know, 12 points then becomes 10 points, 10 points become 5 points, and it's like, maybe. Because they are a good team at the heart, they do really well, don't forget, they finished in a really good position last year. And to have this dramatic sort of volatility in results is unheard of, really. And, you know, they haven't lost games by dramatic margins, they've lost a lot of games by 1-0. And that's been their big problem with just goal scoring. You know, I think the top goal scorer is McGoldrick, who's like 35, and is a championship player through and through. Didn't really. I think Sander Berge was a really strange one. And they spent like 30 million on Sander Berge, which to me doesn't suit Sheffield United at all. And he's been looked out of place ever since, really. And played out of position. You know, he's been playing almost as like a winger at times, crossing the ball in. So very strange there. That could have gone on to like so many better players. But yeah, I think the bottom 5 there would be interesting. I think Burnley will move out, Newcastle will move in, and Newcastle and Brighton might just go into a relegation scrap with like Fulham and maybe even Sheffield United if we can get their act together. But anyway, that's it for this. Let me know what you think of my general breakdown. I know this has been a long video. I think these will be a lot shorter. I was just talking about changes really going forward, and less about and maybe what's happened in between the last videos. But let me know if you want to see this fortnightly or monthly, because the problem I've got at the moment is I've only got 3 slots a week that I'm doing. So, you know, if one's taken up by football and you're not interested in football, that's 30% of the videos I'm uploading, which you might not be interested about. So let me know down below in the comments. You know, like, subscribe, and